Afternoon everyone, welcome back to Marion's World. I'm pleased to report that the quilt is finished. It's been hanging out on my line after coming from the washer this morning, and I will show you how I finished that off. That'll be the first bit of today's video, and then I'll be on with the Blackbird. I had to re-film this little intro bit because when I went to put my video together to post, I realised that I had totally got the camera in the absolutely wrong place, and that half the stuff I filmed wasn't even on camera. So I really do apologise for the funny sort of a edited together piece of filming that you're going to see. But obviously I can't undo the embroidery that I've done on the Blackbird, so it's all a bit higgledy-piggledy, so I am sorry, but I just have to try and be more careful with when I'm setting my camera up. It just totally was in the wrong place. As for the quilt, I'm so thankful to you all that you messaged me, voted when I put it in with the projects that I wanted to do, because if it hadn't been for all of you, I would not have got this quilt finished. I absolutely know that 100%, and it's so lovely and I'm just thankful, so thank you very much. I really appreciate all your messages and all the way that you're supporting my channel by subscribing. I think without further ado, I'm going to cut straight into the finishing of the quilt, and then the Blackbird, and then what will be the next videos after this one. Anyway, thank you everyone. Just applying the binding. I've got my ironed piece of brown sheet, just lining it up with the edge. All I've done is I've roughly cut the excess of the backing off, and I am making just a 1/4 inch seam onto this edge of my quilt, and I'm taking out my quilt edging pins, safety pins, as I go, because I don't want to actually sew over any of them. Just keeping it lined up all the time. I do have a walking foot somewhere, but I just can't find it, so I'm just being very careful to keep everything pulled nicely together, so I don't want any creases. I'm just lining it up nicely, holding it where that next pin is so I don't sew over it. As I get to the corner, I'm going to miter the binding, so I'm just going to sew within about 1/4 inch of the corner. I'm going to put my needle down, one more stitch I think, needle down, foot up. I'm going to turn round so I'm ready to go down the next bit, and I am going to fold the binding back until I have got a 45° coming straight down the next side. I've got my little 45° piece sticking up here. I'm going to put my foot back down and carry on down this side, and when I come to turn the binding over, it'll miter in really nicely. It's a while since I've been able to sew outside. The weather just hasn't been very nice here in the north of England. It's been very wet, and if it hasn't been wet, it's been quite cold. But I'm actually sitting doing the binding on my quilt, which is just amazing. I thought I'd maybe just bring you in quite close up to show you just how I'm doing it, because I'm aware that there'll be some people there who've been quilting for years and know everything there is to know, even more than I do, because I'm not, I'm not like a professional quilter or anything. But even so, there'll be people who just haven't done it before. So what I've done is I've sewn my binding on, so it wasn't a bias strip because it just didn't have enough material. So it's straight on. I sewed it on with a 1/4 inch seam, and I've trimmed everything down to a 1/4 inch so that I can pull that over the edge. I'm coming back over my seam line and I'm just holding it down whilst I hem stitch it in. Now I'm using one strand of embroidery thread because I didn't actually have any dark brown sewing thread to use, and I'd rather use the thread that's the binding colour than the background of the white sheet. So I think when people slip stitch a lot, they go, there's where my thread's coming out of the back of the binding, and they go forward and then forward to make quite a big slip stitch. That's definitely going to be more visible, I think. The way I was taught to do slip stitch hemming when I was a child, and the way I've done it ever since, makes it almost invisible. So it's going into the background straight off where my brown thread is coming out. It's taking a 1/4 inch through the background, and it literally is coming up threads, maybe a couple of threads onto that binding, and then I just keep going, holding it down, hello boo, straight into the background, pushing it through, and a couple of threads, and my thimble is coming in to help pushing it over. Straight in, a 1/4 inch, and the thimble immediately just comes and helps you forward because it's primed there waiting. If you're holding your, it's primed waiting just for you to push. And consistency is better than the size of the stitches, I think. Hello boo, I'll lift you up. So don't worry if your stitches are longer or shorter. I think you do graduate to shorter stitches eventually. Yes, always interrupting the stitching, aren't you? You might find that you start off with bigger stitches, but the longer you do it for, your stitches probably graduate to being slightly shorter, which is probably what I would say to aim for. But it doesn't matter if your stitches are larger, if they're all going to be around about the same size. That's more important, I think. But you will see that if you do it that way, that when you look back at it, you can't even see the stitches. They're almost invisible. So even though I'm not having to push through a huge amount of material here, just the fact of your thimble being on the middle, you're holding your fingers, that middle finger with your thimble on is exactly in the, it just does it automatically and saves yourself so much grief with a sore finger. Anyway, I am carrying on. I'm so near the end now. I think I've got 2 more middles to do. There, that one and that one. But I couldn't wait because the binding was sewn on. I couldn't wait to get the hemming done. So 2 middles in the washer and then finished. Well, everyone, here it is. My Calm Blue Ocean Quilt, out of the washing machine and hanging on the line. And I'm absolutely over the moon with it. It's so pretty. It's not perfect. There are bits where the quilting points don't come together very well. Obviously there is the machine quilting part that I didn't take out, and it's okay, but it was never really that wonderful. And of course I've changed to hand quilting, and I hand quilted it too. I have to say it's been a total joy getting it finished. I can't actually believe that it's hanging on the line, waiting to be dried, and then it's going to be on my bed. So I hope those of you who've got long-term projects that haven't got finished, just do them. Just start, and you might find that you start falling back in love with them. And you might find that it's the best thing you did to get these things out of the cupboard, into the light, and back to stitching them again. Thank you everyone. Without my channel and without you, this would still be in the cupboard. But it's not. It's done. I'm hoping that today will be the finish of the Blackbird. So what I want to do today is finish this piece off and do his legs. I had my little sketch here of the way that he was sitting on the branch, and I couldn't decide whether to just embroider them or try and get them a bit more 3D, a bit more stump workish, and that's what I've decided to do. So the back leg is going to be embroidered with some raised stem stitch, which I'll do in a minute, and the front leg I've decided to do in with wire. So I've got just a piece of this soft wire. It's quite bendable, as you can see. And what I've done already, because it took me a little while, it would have been too long to keep it on film, is I've just gone and made it into a little sort of a hook, as the way that the bird's claw would go around the branch and up into where his leg comes from. So I've done all that with my pliers, and I feel as if I push that in behind there, if I can just get it in beyond my embroidery. Just a bit of a fiddle at the minute, like that. I should be able to get that leg onto there, looking quite nicely raised up from the background. And so because I've decided to do that, I'm actually going to make the branch a little bit rounder as well, so it actually looks like his claw's holding on to something. So what I've got here is the bits of excess backing that I've cut off the quilt. And so I thought, because they were just long pieces, I'd be able to push them in under there, like that. Use a pencil to get them in. And then once I'm sewing that down, that's going to give that some relief and actually make that look rounded. So I'm going to get on and I'm going to do that now. I've got as much in there as I can possibly get, and I'm just going to hold the brown trunk down, and I am just going to, at the beginning, really all you want to do is catch everything down so it stays where you want it to be. So I'm just going to, I've got 2 strands of cotton in my needle. I'm not going to bother about all this sticking out here because I'll deal with that at the end. It's more important to get this actually form the way I'd like to. So I'm not trying to flatten it down, I'm actually trying to fold it under so that I've got a branch, and I'm just going to go in the background and sort of slip stitch it on. Not bothered whether my stitches are visible, but I'm not trying to hide them either. I really like making these 3-dimensional embroideries. It wasn't really something I realised that I would end up doing as much, but once I started, you're just always thinking that you can add to your embroidery by making it textural. And so if I want to embroider over this and make it even more branch-like, I can, but I don't have to. Depends how much I'm wanting to get done. I'm just sort of holding it, and then I hold it in, and I'm pushing my needle underneath so that it actually pulls the felt in, and it really makes it look rounded. I'm going to push all that underneath. It's just a bit of cotton and the batting. They're just the little tiny bits that I've cut off as I've put the binding on. You just experiment. You just try it. The worst it'll go is you've got to overstitch it, or sometimes you have to take it out. But I very rarely unpick anything if I can help it. There's always something else you can do. Unpicking's so disheartening, I think. You feel as if you've done something and you go backwards. Whereas if you put something right by going forwards, then I think, well, for me, my personal way of working anyway, I feel I learn more. So I think that's padded up enough. Plus it makes you feel, it makes your brain have to work things out. I definitely can see that that's rounded. I'll just cut these off. And I'll deal with that right at the end. Definitely. Okay, I'll get myself set up with my thread for that. So I'm just going to go to the edge of where I've drawn and put a straight stitch straight across the thickness of the leg. And another one. I'm keeping them about 1/4 of an inch apart, just because that suits me for this. But you can make them further apart. If I was doing it for a flower stem, maybe I'll put them further apart. I'm going to widen it up a little bit as it comes to where the claws are going to come over. And I'm going to put it on top of the branch because I want this claw to come over the top. So I'm actually going to put a little straight stitch on the branch, and then one more, a little quite narrow one maybe. It's probably enough. So I've got a little ladder coming down the leg. And so the thing with raised stem is they should always work in the same direction. So I'm going to start right at the top, actually underneath the body of the bird. And then I'm just doing stem stitch, but instead of going through the material, I'm just going to go through underneath the ladder and pull through. And just go up it. I'm keeping the thread always to my left because it's just a normal stem stitch, but it's done on top of the fabric. So down to the next little ladder and the next one. And then we're coming up onto the branch and that one. And then I'm just going to put that in there. So you want these stitches to be not pulled tight, but also they don't want to be all waving loose. Quite often you might be doing this in a hoop, but as long as you make sure you're not pulling it too tight. So with raised stem stitch you should always work in the same direction. So I've actually fastened off at the bottom, I'm starting again at the top, and I'm doing the exact same thing. So it's stem stitch through each little ladder rung. I'm keeping my thread to the left of the needle, and I just work back down the ladder. And what it makes is a nice stitch. It's a good filling stitch that will actually look nice and raised up from the background, but because I'm going to make a wire leg for the other one, it will it'll be flatter than the wire one, but it won't be as flat as if I just did it direct on the fabric. So you can see that's starting to build up. So although you feel as if you can't see any room for any more, I'm at least going to get another one, another layer in there. I've gone down the bird leg one more time, and you can see how it's quite raised up. I'm coming over with that claw and taking it right round the bottom of the branch, coming back up to the ankle, and I'm going to just, I'm going to make it like there's a sort of the joint. I'm going to wrap this piece here. Again, I'm not even going through the fabric, I'm just wrapping to make sort of an ankle bone or an ankle joint. I'll go into the fabric now, and then here is where I want the other claw to be going. And I think I'll just straight stitch that so it stays on at the back. It doesn't look quite right yet, but maybe this one needs to curl further. But I'm running out of thread on here, so I'll put one more stitch into here, into the ankle. And I'll tie that off and see what I think. So I'm going to leave that one for the moment. I need to wrap the toe a little bit more, and I'll probably paint the claw. But I'm going to start and work on this other leg. So I feel as if I've got it cut in the proper way, like that. So I've just bent it with my pliers and then bent all the pieces in. And I feel as if that's right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to wrap it with a bit of florist's tape. So this tape's quite sticky, it sticks to itself. So I feel if I wrap it around this wire, not only will I get rid of the cut edges of the wire, but also it thickens the leg, gives it a bit of texture, and it'll be something for the thread to stick onto. So as I come down to the ankle here, I'm going to just thicken that up. I want to be able to see an ankle joint. I'm going to thicken that toe. I'm going to leave it a bit long because I want a claw, and I think the claw would be better if it just was made out of the green stuff. And then I'm going to thicken this bit up here. I'll start from the top again so that the leg gets thick. I'll get right the way down, and this time I'll go over that toe. It's just a bit of a fiddle, but it's nothing hard particularly. And then again I'm going to come right off the end of the wire so that the green stuff just is wrapping itself, and it'll just come away to a point which which will make the claw. I can cut that back, and I'll leave them at the minute and cut it back. Well, maybe I'll cut it now. Just cut it. Just a little bit. And I'm going to thicken that leg up once more at the top. I'll just pull another bit of green tape off. And I will go from the ankle joint around the ankle, and then thicken the top of the leg. And back down on the top of the leg as well. Okay. That looks like it's going to work. Might have made it too thick now because I've got the thickness of the actual embroidery thread. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually wrap the thread around. And start it off, it'll just stick to there. I'm going to keep my needle on in case I need to sew it in, and I'm just going to wrap around and keep it as smooth as I possibly can. I'm not bothered about the top because I'll cover that with feathers. So I'm just going to keep flattening that thread right down, and you can see that actually the stickiness of this tape is actually enough just to hold the thread. This is so much better than just doing it with just the bare wire. And I'm pulling it really tight. I'm going to start now just twisting the leg in. So I don't want the cotton to twist at all. Doesn't matter if there's a little bit of a gap. I'm probably going to paint this as well. And get down to the ankle. Might have needed a longer bit of thread. And now I'm just going to go in and out to keep it as smooth as I possibly can. I'm not bothered about the bit that's going to go behind there because you won't see it. Actually, I'm going to just take a bit of glue. I'm going to get a bit of glue and I'm just going to glue that down, and then I can practice and see what it looks like on the bird. Okay, I've just glued that little bit of thread down so you can see that I've just got this funny bird's foot shape that's going to go in there somehow. So I'm going to just see if I can feed that down there behind all my padding through the back of the branch. Should just come through. Just a bit of a wiggle. Now you can see the claw poking out there. It's quite good. Actually, it's not too bad at all. And it's a little bit long. So I think I should have made it a bit shorter. I don't want it to go right up to the wing here. So I'm just going to amend that. But I think this bit here is actually fine. I've cut the wire down, so I've cut that whole leg a little bit shorter, so it's just going to sit nicely to where I feel it should be. And I've got some black thread in my needle, and I'm just going to couch it down to keep it there so I can get on to the next thing. So I just need it to be at the right angle. I'll just hold it down and look again. I think that's where I would like it to be. I'm just going to put that needle through and couch that down. So I've just held that down with some black thread. I've got a little piece of the stretch denim that's got a little bit of a nice pattern on it, and I'm just going to cover up where the shaggy feathers would be for his legs, and so that would be where his leg would come out. So I'll feel as if I'm going to cover that like that, maybe not quite so long as that, but in that sort of a way. And I'm just going to texture this edge up first to make shaggy feathers. I can always cut them more, but I just need to see that I'm in the right direction of what I'm trying to do. I've just got this little shaggy piece now, and I shall start and stitch that on. Actually, I think that's just about right. Need a little bit of padding just there. The bottom of his wing is a little bit higher up, so I think that's about right. So I'm trying to stitch this on with just some nice straight stitches going across. It's always better once it's actually attached, then you can manipulate things and do other things once it's on. So I'll just get it on first so I can have a look. I realise it's a bit difficult to see when it's black on black. And I need another shaggy piece on there. Maybe I'll just get some individual pieces, or I'll use it with embroidery. Oh, I think I need another little piece. Got a little diamond of it here. Let's try that. And there's his shaggy feathers going off to his bottom. Oh, that's pretty decent. Well, my blackbird's just about finished. I've added a few more black stitches here to go over the top of this leg. I've added a couple of extra leaves on because I'd forgotten that I wanted to do that, and I am aware that the whole page will be moving just a little bit further across, so I've added the leaves onto there because I sort of started the bird a little bit further over. So the only thing left to do now is to just paint up the bits I need to paint up. So I've got my ink stencil again, just pull that into the side. Oh, it's a total mess on the table. That's what happens when I'm working, total mess on the table. So I would like to just paint a little bit of colour down here. So I'm going to use a bit of brown and a bit of beige, and I'm just going to shade the back of this leg. And what I also want is just a little bit of brown, and I'm just going to pull it into here, which is just going to shade that leg a little bit and the back claw. And as I get onto this front part, I'm just going to pull the colour down onto here. I obviously don't want this claw to be green. I use a bit of the ochre. Onto there. That back claw needs to be black. And so I'm going to just be very, very, very careful. In fact, I'm just going to use charcoal. I'm not going to use the jet black. Touch this wire, the wire that's covered with the green tape. I touch this claw here. that back claw, which actually I probably could have just done with black thread, but too late. I'm doing it with that. And this claw here. I think I'm really happy with that. It's made a good looking claw actually. And then that claw there also really needs to be black. And I think I'm happy to call my Blackbird page complete. I'll hold that right up to you. Oh yes, that's it. That's definitely it. Put my ink tents away, put the bird down, bring you in for a close look. Well, Blackbird's finished. I hope you got some good techniques there. It's nice to be able to make your embroidery into something that's not just flat. There's nothing wrong with flat embroidery. I love doing it. But then sometimes it's nice to just take things a bit further and do a bit of an experiment. So I'm pleased that that one's finished. It means I'm on to another page in the bird book next week. The only thing with next week is there's likely to be not normal service because my daughter Naomi is coming home from Berlin and spending a week here, and so everything will be upside down. I have no idea what will get posted. There will be something, but I don't know what. I know she wants me to make her something, so it may be that it's some clothes project that gets filmed next week. But it's going to be lovely. She'll be here. All the normal routine will be disrupted, and it'll be wonderful. So there may be flower book pages come in, or there may not be. I haven't got a clue. But in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed what I've shared with you today. Please put the thumbs up, like button, and subscribe to my channel if you want to carry on seeing more of what's going on in Marion's world. And I will see you next time. Bye bye from Marion's world. Enjoy.